Okay then, so good morning everyone, welcome to Winning in the Solent region. It's our second session in the series. It's our pleasure to welcome you here at Solent. We're delighted to be working with colleagues at the University of Portsmouth and Hampshire Chamber of Commerce to bring you today's session. This week it is World Wellbeing Week, so it's even more fitting, the theme and the discussion we're going to have today. It's now my pleasure to welcome and introduce Ross McNally, Interim CEO and Executive Chair at Hampshire Chamber of Commerce, who's going to say a few words and introduce today's session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mike. Welcome everybody. It's lovely to be here for the second of the series of these events, and I'm delighted once again that I'm here with Gillian Saiva, Head of Business, Finance and Accounting and Higher and Degree Apprenticeships at Solent University, and of course James McCalman, who's a Professor of Leadership Studies from the University of Portsmouth. I mean, they're going to be taking us through some really interesting subjects over the course of the next hour or so, and it's a great opportunity for everybody to ask some questions and to get some enlightenment. Hampshire Chamber of Commerce has been working with both universities and had a wonderful relationship built up over many years, bringing them together in this with this opportunity to explore during what is quite an exceptional time for businesses, I think is very important, and I'm sure will be impactful as we move through to the next stage of the current challenge, which I think is obviously moving back into our new normal, and a lot of what's going to be discussed today and covered today will address those specific and new challenges that we're all getting. We understand that small businesses are experiencing some real issues around working with their teams remotely, around new strategies for business, and importantly, what that means in terms of new models and new opportunities. The work that we do with the universities and their involvement as recognised under Small Business Charter really is invaluable, and we hope that this is starting of a building of a relationship in the coming months and years, which will take on new subjects and new issues and help you through those particular challenges. Now, many of you will have submitted questions, and obviously we will be trying to cover as many as possible, but we do want to hear from you now, so please do place your questions in the Q&A box, and we will make sure that following the presentations there's an opportunity to address some of those. We're trying to get as much done as possible, but even those that don't get answered today, we will be responding to you and get out to you with some information, advice based upon the presentations that you will see today. What I'd like to do first of all, therefore, is to welcome Gillian Saiva, as I say, Head of Business, Finance, Accounting and Higher and Degree Apprenticeships at Solent University. She's going to be looking at the whole situation around the new normal and how we can lead and support colleagues through changes. Over to you, Gillian.
Thank you very much, Ross, for that lovely introduction, and hello and good morning to everyone on this event this morning. Lovely to have you here with us. So I'm not sure how many of you joined the first Winning in the Solent Region event where we looked at managing the new normal. I am going to draw on some of the content that we talked about the last time because it just underpins what we're drilling further down into today, and really looking in more detail at leading and supporting colleagues through change. We work very closely with the Chartered Management Institute at Solent University, so you will see their library at the bottom of the screen. And what I will be doing is drawing off their body of knowledge, the Better Managers Manual, which was published just after the COVID crisis hit. And has been a pillar of strength for a lot of managers across the business community. So really just reflecting, we know that we are trying to navigate our way through this new normal. We're at a stage now where, of course, the government has been implementing its various phases with regards to returning to life as normal as possible. But I think it's very true that we all are still recovering from indeed the impacts of just really the shock of COVID. It was sudden, it was dramatic, it has been life-threatening, and indeed it has taken many lives away of loved ones, which is the very sad impact of it all. And of course it is the uncertainty really that hangs over everyone that causes a great element of stress. But I think we believe moving forwards, we're in this post-pandemic world, it's really important that we do try and navigate that as sustainably as possible. So I think from that there are some elements of new learning for us. There's some ideas for us to look at working more flexibly, managing ongoing mental health and well-being for both ourselves and our employees, and also engaging our employees, which of course is really important if we're going to have a sustainable business product moving forwards. So we're just going to drill down on those in a little bit more detail. So reflecting on flexible working and its benefits, this was a slide that was shared during the session last month. And you can see the stats here. You all may be aware that obviously there is a legal expectation of organisations now that they do offer flexible working for their employees. And this was actually in place before COVID-19 hit. What we have seen, of course, is businesses forced to go into the working from home approach. So, of course, flexible working is brought fully onto the table for discussion. I've highlighted in red here, current remote working situations may not be perfect. It could provide the foundation for a sustainable future for flexible working for yourself and for your staff. And really it's from that platform that I want to then really try and focus in on, well, what does flexible working actually look like as we try to navigate our way into a more normal pattern of working. And of course we've got organisations returning to the workplace via phased return, etc. I think what has been a great learning experience for everyone, and this is managers, leaders, everyone on the shop floor, is that the experience of actually working in a home environment has actually opened up new opportunities. It's made people think about how they actually do their work, where they do their work, but most importantly, where they're actually most productive. And that productivity question is something that the government are very focused on. It's something that the Business, Enterprise and Industrial Strategy Department of the government are very focused on. And as we seek to come out of this crisis and get businesses moving again, a big question is actually around that productivity. And we know a lot of that can sit around how do you actually get the best out of your people. So it's looking at, well, what does this flexibility for everyone look like? I think it's really important that managers and leaders do actually listen to how their employees have perhaps coped during the time of the lockdown when they were indeed working from home, what worked for them, what didn't work for them. I think be very flexible and open to how you may want to structure the alignment of your people within your business as you seek to open your business again. So there's various modes such as flexi time. You may look at compressed hours. There may be job shares to get the maximum amount of talent into your business, and of course part-time working options. I have mentioned here obviously the reduction in the gender pay gap, and we know that the government is very committed to being able to empower more females into the workplace and of course report on a reduction in that gender pay gap moving forwards. So what we have found is that during the lockdown period, of course, females that would have been in organisations are of course working from home, and they may be having to homeschool children, they may be having to navigate how they're going to buy essential items, food and whatever for the home through queuing processes and everything else. So of course these are all things that impact in on the range of jobs that everyone has to do between life and work in order to survive. And I think what COVID-19 has done for all of us, it has actually been a great grounding mechanism. It's brought everyone down to an equal footing and made us think, okay, well, what are the things that actually need to be covered off moving forwards? So I think in terms of your organisation, if you are looking at trying to get the best out of your people, maybe you're in a position where you actually are going to have to go out and recruit people into your business. We know there's some elements of business that have been very busy during the lockdown period, particularly the supply chain sector. Some of the retail sector, particularly supermarkets, have been very busy. So I think it's really important, if you want to attract the best talent into your businesses moving forwards, you really have to showcase the business case for flexible working. And again, it's how you align yourself to attract the best people, but also how you then seek to retain the best talent within your business. And of course, what you can do to actually progress the best talent within your business through to opportunities that may arise as your business seeks to grow and develop. Moving forwards, noting that we will have challenging times ahead, but still you have to be focused on growth. So top tips: make sure you advertise what is available and have flexibility built into all of those roles. I think from a leadership and management point of view, it is so important to actually role model that. So actually practice what you preach, and of course communicate your flexible working policy when you are communicating with your staff, looking at the return to work. Of course, sits very strongly within this is of course the agenda for mental health and well-being, and as Mike Torrey mentioned in the first introduction, this actually is World Wellbeing Week, so it's quite fitting that we do draw upon content from the Centre of Mental Health and also from Mental Health England. We can't deny that the pandemic has actually presented us with a very stressful environment. It has impacted everyone, and everyone has found their own way of working through it. And last session we did reflect on the Kubler-Ross grief cycle and its alignment with just everyone's coping mechanism within COVID-19. I think it's really important that if your business is still going to have staff still retained and working in their homes, it's so important that you do actually reach out and carry out that health and safety audit within the home. And equally, for those of you that are phasing staff back onto your premises, really important, of course, that you carry out your health and safety audit with regards to the social distancing. Again, we can't stress enough the training for both managers and team leaders on managing mental health within the workplace. It's something that can sneak up on people without them even realising it, and the biggest challenge is for them to actually acknowledge it and ask for help. They won't always ask for help, and this is where it's really important that you do have a lot of contact with your staff so that you can pick up on how they are actually doing. Clear stats there presented around the impact that it actually has on the economy, workplace costs, and of course reduced productivity. I think something to draw upon is just the awareness around burnout and stress, and a lot of people may well join with me and reflect that during the home working aspect of the pandemic, a lot of people cite actually working extra hours because of the homogeneous nature of the home life and the work life being combined together. We're very aware that this is something that everyone needs to be aware of, and it's the active contact of managers with their staff and ensuring that staff can push back and actually build some boundaries between home life and work life. Mental health coping strategies. Mental Health England, their CEO Simon Blake actually was interviewed by the CEO of the Chartered Management Institute, Anne Franca, and in that interview he did share coping strategies that people can just reflect on. Taking the time to breathe, taking the time to talk and listen and actually share, and most importantly actually getting out and enjoying nature and enjoying the impacts from that. And we do know that that was quite a natural reaction that a lot of the general public had during lockdown, whenever our Prime Minister only allowed 1 hour of exercise per day. and we know that there was people going out and exercising that maybe hadn't exercised before. There was dogs that were exhausted being walked because everyone was using the opportunity to get out. So I think in some aspects it has drawn upon some people's focus to actually want to get out, and they've seen nature as being something to really work with. As I said earlier, maintaining the clear communication is just so important as you navigate your way forward with your staff. Making sure you check in with them, building connections for that remote working, and this, which I believe is a really good killer question, but in the right way. And this was something that the Mental Health England CEO recommended when you are going on a call with someone for the first time. Not just saying, how are you? It's how are you and what are you doing to look after yourself? And I think that's a very key question, because what it's doing, it's actually putting the responsibility onto the individual, but it's actually citing that the leader and manager is actually really connected to the fact that everyone is an individual, and everyone may well have their own method of coping strategy within that. The circle of concern, circle of influence. This is by our old friend Stephen Covey, the author of The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which you may be familiar with. And I think it's important that we just reflect on this, particularly with it being Wellbeing Week. The positive mindset, as we know, is something that carries a lot of us through very tough times, but we all know that imps can appear on our shoulders. We can have voices within our minds that actually challenge that positive mindset. So with that, it's just really being aware of the circle of concern, and if you let the negative mindset be dominant within the circle of influence, this is where you will default to actually blaming other people, blaming the environment around you, but not actually embracing the positive mindset and actually taking ownership and control of your actions and behaviours. And this is something that, of course, as people start to merge and work together again, it's so important that a positive and motivated and engaged workforce are there to help build your business forwards. With that, I mentioned the word engagement, and of course we know that engaging your employees has been very challenging during the lockdown period. We have seen great examples of people trying to bring about these moments of joy, whether it's teams wearing funny hats or having quizzes after work times online and so forth, just to sort of bring back that camaraderie that exists within the workplace and actually is a strong part of job satisfaction, and that a lot of us really yearn for. I think it's important that you can empathise with everyone. Everyone's journey will be individual. If you have an employee assistance programme, it's important you do communicate that to your staff, and also provide recognition for all of that work done. That's certainly very important. Something I just want to leave you with as I finish up here. As mentioned earlier, you know, how are you and what are you doing to actually manage your own mental health today? We all know that when we disconnect, we can then fully connect to what matters most. Having that 1 hour out to have some exercise during the day, we know that everyone comes back to their work feeling very refreshed. So in the spirit of Mental Health and Wellbeing Week, I want to challenge you all between now and our next Winning in the Solent Region event next month to actually encourage yourself, remember you have to lead by example, and your staff to actually take a sabbatical hour. We all know we would love to be able to take a full year sabbatical and go off somewhere nice, but that isn't possible. But what we can do is do what we can, and that is take a sabbatical hour. Whether that's a walk somewhere that you feel relaxed and empowered in, do it, maybe doing an activity, going for a social distance walk with a loved one or whatever. What we would encourage you to do is actually do a selfie of yourself or share the vista that you're indeed looking at or what you're involved with. We want you to share it and hashtag us in at hashtag WISR 2020. And for our next event in July, what we will do is identify the one that we felt was most compelling, and we will make contact with that individual before the July Winning in the Solent Region session, and we'll actually draw down some meaning and further narrative around that, so you can play your part in actually contributing to the voice for the next session. So we look forward to seeing your hashtags coming in from your sabbatical hours, and I will be contributing myself. So ultimately, managing change one step at a time is what I'm going to leave you with, and allow James to come back in on that. We know we can't expect miracles right away, but with little tiny steps, we all will get there in a supportive environment for all. Thank you, and James, over to you.
I'm going to take you a walk through a garden. It's called the Change Garden. Basically, what I have used this in the past with is with organisations and teams within organisations, trying to get them to recognise how and where they are and how they can move on from that. So we use the analogy of a change garden, and the change garden has a number of different plots, and the plots are identified with where you are on the sort of path to change. This has been very rudely adapted from Kubler-Ross's model on how we cope with grief, and organisations using it or trying to adapt it in terms of moving forward with change. So you sit in one of the four change plots. One is contentment, one is denial, one is confusion, and one is renewal. And there are some difficult change issues in some of these plots in the garden. So for example, if you're in contentment, and I would suspect given where we are in terms of what's going on over the last 3.5 months, none of us are sitting in contentment. You can get quite used to, as an organisation, being relaxed and content, even to the point where it's so comfortable you go into the little sun trap and forget that you actually have a business and that the business can be caught up by competitors, etc. Let me move on. So signs of contentment are things like, once we get out of this lockdown nonsense, we'll just go back to business as usual, or business as normal, because it isn't broken, so why do we need to fix it? It's a kind of ignoring the truth, ignoring what's happening in the world. It's about being uninformed and not having a desire to take on the idea of the notion of change. So it's quite an arrogant place to be. Big multinational companies who have monopolistic positions within their particular marketplaces have this arrogance of contentment. And lo and behold, it's not surprising that they get caught by small, dynamic, faster organizations because they lack a sense of urgency. So it may be that if we're looking at this change garden as how it reflects an individual in your workplace, you may reflect on who is saying these types of things and what is leading them to that, having that lack of urgency. It was interesting. I was watching, as I do of an evening, watching Burnley play Manchester City last night. And some Egypt, which is a Scottish term, flies across the football ground with a sign that says "White Lives Matter." And after all that has gone on over the course of the last couple of months, there's a whole process by which people go up in arms about this. And what I was interested in talking about was the response from Graham Souness, who, although is a well-respected footballer, is somebody who's probably coming out of denial in terms of Black Lives Matters. He's probably the sort of person who has said, you know, it doesn't matter to me in the past, but he stood in front of a camera, or sat in front of a camera last night and said, I need help with this because I was in denial and I'm moving out of denial. And I think quite a lot of our organisations might be in this process of denial, you know, trying to get back to the past, maintaining the fact that, you know, we've always done it this way, so we'll always do it this way. So people or teams who are in denial are not listening about the need for change, reflecting on the past, focusing on defending the past rather than moving to the future. And if you ask them about the need for change, they become quite aggressive and quite responsive in that aggressive type way. So one part of the garden is a garden where you're in denial, and moving out of that denial process is quite appropriate at this point in time. I would suspect that most of us as individuals, organisations, are in this confusion state, where we don't know what's happening, we don't know what's going to happen. We're in a state of frustration, where we have insecurity, there's a lack of direction. And this is where leadership becomes increasingly important, of someone stepping into the situation of confusion and beginning to bring a bit of enlightenment. I noticed that one of the pre-questions was about how can I as a leader help my people move forward? Well, it's your responsibility as a leader to get people out of particular parts of this garden. And that can be done in a number of different ways, but it is your job. It is your responsibility as a leader to move people away from areas of confusion into this final process here of renewal. An organisation, an individual, or a team that's in renewal is trying to make things happen. They're beginning to see the need for renewal, they're seeing the need for greater change, greater responsibility. They're willing to trust, they're willing to listen, they're willing to learn. So you can see all the positive constructs in this part of the garden. It's about getting everyone involved, being strong, being tough, making good strategic decisions, wanting to make a change, wanting to come up towards the challenge and being constructive with it. So this is where hopefully we want to get to. The difficulty is, how do we get there? One of the problems is that about a change garden is that individuals and organisations will move around the process of change from plot to plot in a kind of anti-clockwise route. So you might go from the notion of we're quite content with the way the world has been into, well, we don't need to change because, you know, things will get back to normal, into the, oh, things aren't getting back to normal, what are we going to do, into the, we need to do something ourselves. So you're going around that process. So you do spend an amount of time in each of those different plots. There isn't really an end point, but it's important that basically you get the notion of change focusing. So for example, if you get to renewal, it may be that you feel so comfortable about renewal that you go into contentment and you relax, or you sit back on your laurels again. But I think this is the important thing that I thought was worth focusing on, is what can you do with this type of material, this type of information. One thing to do with it over the course of maybe the next couple of days is think about, who do I know that I can use this type of material with? So if you think about individuals or maybe some of your teams, look at it in terms of three particular perspectives. One is, what could we achieve? What might I achieve if I work with these people using this type of tool? Secondly, what should I not expect to get? So what is just too far, or stretched too far? And then thirdly, what are the possible actions I could maybe engage with? Let me use a couple of examples. A simple one would be moving out of contentment. So what you might want to achieve in terms of moving your team out of contentment is that people start thinking about the change. It's not going to be the second part. You won't expect them to accept that things need to change, but start getting them to think about the change. And then one of those aspects might be some actions. Maybe you need to shock your people out of complacency, or challenge them, challenge their assumptions. You challenge the assumptions that we're all coming back to work. We're not. Basically, the truth is we're not all coming back to work. It's a physical impossibility to have all those people in that room at that one time. So, for example, I have 75 MBA students. I'm not going to see them again. Yeah, only time I will see them will be online. It might be this time next year we get back to having full classroom experience, but we don't have the physical capacity to bring 75 people into a room in a socially distanced manner. We could put them in a lecture theatre, but there are other more significant demands on those lecture theatres by bigger class sizes in undergraduate rooms. So I know that my challenge is going to be, how do I cope with my customers in that respect in terms of the new approach? Part of that is I'm plagiarising what other university organisations are doing in that sense. You know, how do we get online and how do we interact in an online manner? So again, these are just a couple of examples. Moving out of denial, what you might expect to see is people accepting that something needs to be done, but they won't see the way the future looks like as easily as you do. So they will accept that something needs to be done, but they don't understand the way that you do what needs to be done. So in that sense, you are a picture painter for people. So some of the actions that you can engage in is, as a leader, talking to people about what the future might look like, what might be the purpose of the organisation in the future, and what benefits these changes might bring to them as individuals, you and your team as an organisation, and your customers, etc., etc. So rather than offering a detailed set of solutions, you're in that sort of leader as visionary mode, trying to convince people that there is a future, and that future could actually be quite constructive and quite positive. So again, one might look at the whole notion of it would be lovely to be back in the same room, but there are only going to be small or significant occasions when we're capable of doing that. How could we do that in a more effective way? I mean, I'm sitting in my lovely dining room when I should be out in my garden doing this. You know, we could be doing this face to face in the garden. So those are a couple of examples. Again, if anyone's interested, please get in touch, because we can go through the examples of how you get to Renewal and how you might engage people with Renewal. But we obviously don't have time to do that this morning. But I would leave you with the notion that the Change Garden is about getting people to think differently. It's no more complex or complicated than that. It's a whole notion, sorry. So is that's somebody telling me my time is up. So at that point, I'm going to shut up and say, please, if you found any of this of interest and you want to engage with that, please get in touch with us and we can let you have the materials and we can maybe discuss it online or whichever way you want to take it from there. At which point I shall stop for questions.